Good day, ladies and gentlemen. I have with me in studio today Dr. Sharon, and he is from the Love Fellowship Ministries in Miami. He is a pastor, he's a counselor, and he's a dad. And I am Dr. Sharon Porter from Victory Place International Worship Center. Now we're talking about Father's Day. And so we're just very happy and thrilled that he is with us to talk with us. We're going to be engaging ourselves in conversation because even when you go in the stores, like Mother's Day, you find tons of gifts. However, the disparity comes when it's Father's Day, you can hardly find anything. So we just want to know what is happening here. Father's Day gives us an opportunity to look at the role of fathers and fatherhood. So my first question to you, Bishop, is, in your view, what's the role of a father?
First and foremost, let me thank you for having me sharing with you in this forum. As we look at the institution of fatherhood, you made a very important point, very important observation regarding the disparities in society as it relates to fathers. Your specific question is my view as to the role of a father. I really believe the role of a father within the home and within society is to set the framework for the basic institution that is the family. It is to provide the framework within which the family should grow and achieve all that God, in my view, has called or expect out of the family. Some people would readily tell you that the role of the father is to provide security and to provide safety for the family. But I do believe it has to do a bit more with the person, the male, participating fully in the role of parenting a child. I do believe it must be more than providing things. I think it has to do with being there to ensure that the child become all that God intends for the child, providing the framework where the child is shielded from the evils that society would bring to destroy their lives, and so on.
Thank you very much. So here we have it, right from our father. He says it's not just to provide security and to provide housing, all of that. It's really to help in the development of the child. So very, very good. Thank you very much. And then my next question, as a counselor, the counselor part of it, you have spoken to men all over, different fathers. What are some of the challenges you see them having as fathers?
Well, for one, society has imposed, again in my view, a view of the father that is not always complimentary. Men are very often seen as deadbeat dads, and not much is so as a result, not much is expected of him. And we must admit that to a great extent, many men are absent from the household, and so women are made to play the dual role of mother and father. Notwithstanding that, I do see that the man's role as father, as the principal breadwinner, as the principal priest within the household, I do see that role as being an expansive role, one in which compassion must be provided, one in which, in a real way, the man or the male must become a model for what he expects out of his child, especially the male child, and also for the female child, to provide the model which his daughter should be looking to when she goes out in selecting a husband. In as far as the role of being counselor, being guide to that individual, I would want to believe that as a pastor, I would want to see myself in playing a pastoral counseling role is to help the man to recognize all that and to help them to mature within that function, notwithstanding what society thinks or say of them.
Very, very good. So I just want to challenge the fathers out there. You're not deadbeat dads. Really, you are the priest of your house. And I just want to say something along that line, sir. I think as a wife and as a mother myself, I sort of help to play a role in how the children view their dad. Because if I treat him as the prince, if I treat him as the priest of the house, then the children will see my behavior and will also treat him accordingly.
And that's a very, very important observation, because to some extent, the man's ability to function or to perform as a father is reinforced first and foremost by the spouse, by the woman in the household. How does she see this person as her, for want of a better term, her king? But again, we may have to peel back some more layers as to the fact that a lot of households, we find that the men, to a great extent, did not even start correctly, because this business of fatherhood and parenting, I do believe Jesus, I think, who said in Luke chapter 14, that a man does not build a house without sitting down and counting the cost. And we must be honest and be forthright in saying a lot of households started without a plan. A child was never a consideration. It was all fun first and foremost. The child is the result of the fun, and so there's no real plan from the very outset. So yes.
Thank you very much, Bishop Heron. It's not all just fun. We should have a plan. I really, really appreciate you sharing that. So I know you have daughters.
Yes.
Then I want you to share with us what are some of your most memorable moments thinking about fatherhood.
Sister Porter, that could take us all evening, because I'd have to start with your birth. Both of them, we were living out in country. And my wife, in her wisdom, chose to do her prenatal care at the University Hospital of the West Indies. So birth was always a problematic thing. I remember going off to Kingston to take somebody to the airport, and she was close to delivery, and it took me a long time to get back home, because back in those days there was a waving gallery, and the person who I took to the airport wanted to see her daughter off, and she was not prepared to leave until the aircraft had left, and the flight was delayed. And so, it was not a happy camper who was left at home. When I got home, I had to get a few choice words. Good words, but good. But notwithstanding all of that, birth was something exhilarating. To be at the hospital, I could not go in because it was C-section. The second one was even more dramatic, because she was born right in the midst of a gas crisis, resulting in the blocking of the roadways across Jamaica. Got home the evening before the child was born. My wife told me that she feels as if it is time. I went into the house, turned the television on, the news was on, and they are announcing this gas price increase and an impending gas strike. I ran back out to the road, rushed back out to the road, filled the car up, and drove into Kingston early in the morning. I was working in Old Harbour, but I could not get back to Old Harbour. I was blocked in Kingston. God was good to me. Where I got held up was close to a member of one of our churches in Kingston. I knew the lady well. I went to that lady's house, and she put me up. I tell you, I could stay all night talking about that. All night, I did not know what was happening to my wife, because the phone at the house I was staying was down. The next morning I woke up, I did not know what was happening, and I could not drive across Kingston. I'm now at the top of Malines Road, close to Washington Boulevard, and she's all the way off Windward Road. I had to walk from there to go find out exactly what's happening. When I got to the house, I was told my wife was taken by the JDF to the University Hospital of the West Indies. I could not drive. I had to walk there. When I got there, she already had the baby Wow. Excitement. It was more than that. It was indeed, to me, a storybook I could have written about that. The first one, I was almost killed when Camille was born. No, it was not Camille. That's not the truth. There was a third child, a boy. And at the hospital, I was held up, and at knife point, someone demanded money from me. I gave him what I had. He cried out to somebody else, "There it is, take it." And the guy rushed for my shirt pocket to take whatever was left, and they stabbed at me when I began to shout. That was all excitement, all storybook lines. But the birth, them coming into the world, was something I just cannot explain. My girls, I don't think having a boy, having to comb hair as a man would have been as exciting as seeing my girls before me. Two different children, two different personality. I really cannot contain myself when I think of those instances of taking them to church, seeing them sleep on those benches in the country, having to live rough life. Your husband was a pastor in Jamaica. You know a little bit about that. But I tell you, it was not all easy, but it was exciting to see them living within the context of the Christian community, with very often having less than what others do have because of the context of the rural church. Exciting. I would not want to replace that with being a pastor in Kingston. It gave them context, it gave them a perspective, which I believe keep them grounded.
Very good. As a mother, you speaking, it just warms my heart because you just have so much life. Now, you have chronicled from birth. Mm-hmm. And I want to talk to the fathers out there. Notice, he is sharing that he has been there. Look at how memorable those years, the moment of him being there at the birth. And when he could not, crisis came. Mm-hmm. And there was one time he could not be there. My goodness, I'm telling you. Fathers, I think you really need to be a part of this birthing process so you can feel it, just like he's sharing with us. Mm-hmm. He's not a story. He said it's like a storybook, but this is his story. I think all fathers should try to have a story. And this is going to lead me to another question I want to ask you. What would you say to some men out there who are aspiring to be fathers?
Again, I could go back to where we were earlier on. Have a plan. Make sure the child is someone you really want to be in your life, because that does create, in my estimation, a wholesome atmosphere in which the child is going to be born and now have to live out their life. You're not caught by surprise when you are told that I am pregnant and you have no plans. This is something you wanted. This is something you expected. So great was my expectation that when my first child was born, I had a name before I even knew that it was going to be a girl. When the second one was to be born, I was caught in a fix because I needed a boy. I told myself, but a girl came, so I had no name. But have a plan. Please, if you don't get a child by accident. Be purposeful, be intentional. One, it speaks to you honoring the woman in your life. I do believe. And secondly, it gives the child the right footing on which you are starting. So, gentlemen, plan. And if you're going to plan, then you need to make sure that the plan is bolstered by the resources for you to execute the plan. And by that I mean make sure the money is in place so the crib can be purchased, the bassinet, whatever the names are, and all that is required, the food and so forth, can be taken care of, so the child will get the proper start that he or she deserves.
Thank you very much. So again, we cannot overemphasize that men, you need a plan. Be purposeful. And along with that plan, make sure you have some resources so that you can take care properly of the child that is coming into being. Thank you very much. Now we want to sort of look at, we've been talking, and this is like general talking. So let us look at the Christian part of it now.
Yes.
So tell me what you think would be some Christian advice for some Christian fathers in terms of leaving a legacy.
But can I say something before you get to the legacy portion of it? I would want to say to anybody who's out there watching, if you're a Christian, make sure your place within the Christian community is a solid place. Do not be just a visitor in your church. Let your church know you. The philosophy or the view that it takes a village to raise a child is true. That maxim is true. And within the church, I believe the greatest, can I call it, help you can ever find is to have the church itself being a part of the child's development. By that, I am suggesting your involvement with the church should not be just go in for praise and worship and a message and you go back home. Build fellowship with others so that they can help you with the business of raising the child. When I grew up as a youngster, I knew my godparents. They took an active part in my life. I would want to say to you, if you're watching us this evening, ensure that your child is a part of the church. So, you as a member, your child must go through Sunday school, if the church has a Sunday school, must be a part of what we call children's church, and disciple the child to be one who serves in the church. It could be when they grow up, you must get them involved with the music ministry of the church, youth ministry of the church. If there's a camping ministry, guide them and provide the money for them to go to these things. Because it is within those ministries of the church that they themselves will come to find Christ. Which should be the father or the parent's greatest desire in as far as leaving a legacy. I would want to make sure, I want to see my children being saved. I have two, and most people would say, boy, Bishop, I only know one. I have two. The second one was also an active member of a church. Right now she's not, but it is our prayer, our desire to see her come back into full fellowship with Christ. This is my greatest desire in terms of leaving a legacy. And then secondly, to see them involved with ministry at some level. And every Christian parent should want that to happen. And outside of that, of course, being accomplished in whatever field they choose, be it a teacher, lawyer, doctor, dentist, and I hope not thief, that they become perfect in what they do.
Thank you very much. So you're saying it takes a village, but the father should not just go to church. He should be involved himself and then make friends, have relationships within the church so that the village that's around him can also help the children to grow. And then he says to leave the Christian legacy is pretty much you wanting to see them become involved. As you say, every Christian, that's their dream, to have their children being involved in ministry. And so the fathers can really play a role by helping, encouraging, and be also active. And you mentioned godparents. I used to wonder, where do we get the name godparents?
I am not too certain, but I would want, I am almost certain one of the where it started from was more so from the traditional churches, where, and in fact, that's how it was taught to me in catechism back in my early Christian life. And I leave you to imagine where that was. But the godparents, their role was to bring the child back to the church for confirmation. So the child within that tradition were baptized as an infant. The godparents, your role is to help the parents of the child, nurture them and disciple them, where they were brought back to the church for communion. That's where the bishop would now come in and lay hand on the child for the receipt of the Holy Spirit.
So I agree with that, and I hope some mothers are listening, because sometimes they're asking people to be godparents who don't even know the Lord. And then they say, this is her godmother. Mm-hmm. Never been to church. So we really want, to me, it's to help with that Christian development.
You see, there are some things which are passed on through tradition, which our younger churches do not necessarily understand the tradition. We carry the thing on without understanding, so it is not taught to us that way. But within those traditions, it is expected that that is the role. For us, we allow anybody, because in those church settings, the person has to be a member of the church if they're going to play the role of a godparent. Within our traditions, we really don't insist on that. And for some parents, their idea of a godparent is that the godparents go and just buy things for this child. You know, it has nothing to do with bringing them back to the church, because they themselves not coming back to church. The point you had made earlier on, I think, is a good point for us to go back to Sister Porter, and that is when you mention about your role as a mother in setting the model for your child to respect your husband as their father. The whole matter of modeling. The Christian has to model that which they expect out of their children. So if you want to see them being church people and good church people, you yourself have got to be a good church person. So going to church now is not an option. When you have children, you need to go to church every week so the child understands that is essential. Secondly, and if I may say that, I don't know how much time we have here, but I think it is crucial that we understand how we behave ourselves. The Bible says we ought to know how to behave ourselves in the house of God. I would want to say we ought to be aware as to how we must behave ourselves in our own houses, because we cannot behave one way at home and another way in church. We need to model what Christ-likeness is in the home, so that when you go to church, they see that the church is impacting your life, which you live at home. You see? So I think that is very, very, very crucial. Model the Christ-likeness so that the child will be able to aspire to be just like you.
Good, thank you. So we're modeling. Mm-hmm. So the mothers, the wives, we're also modeling, not just the fathers. But we're modeling
as parents,
yes, so that the children can see and they will really want to behave and come to appreciate their dad based on how we probably show dad at home. Because if we don't treat that good at home, and then children will not want to treat him as well. Yeah. So we have to be careful, all right? So we are living.
Certainly.
All right. So, and I'm happy that you are the person we have talking with today, because you have really shared a lot of important things, to be honest with you, that we could all learn from. And my final question would be, would you as a father, would you have done anything differently?
For me, I'm a Jamaican. I'm an immigrant. Came to this.
Jamaican father, huh?
I'm a Jamaican father. Probably if I could do one thing over is to think how best can I put it? If I could probably refine the timing of my migration. One of the problems which families are beset with, immigrants, of course, I'm talking about here, is that sometimes there is both parties do not migrate at the same time. For us, it was not a whole lot of time. It was about 2 years, but they were crucial 2 years. The girls had gone into high school, and my wife was ahead of me. So I was left to be father and mother in the first 2 years of them being in high school. And so I think, well, Camille had completed 1 year, and then she just started second year. The other one had just started high school. So I probably want to make sure we are all together at the same place, especially at that crucial time of their education and so forth.
Thank you very, very much. Again, I want to say to us all listening that it is very crucial that the fathers are given the role. For example, we know that they're fathers, but sometimes we don't treat them like fathers, and we ought to be treating them accordingly. And I just want to say to the fathers, the society may have seen you as deadbeat dads, but today is an opportunity that you can rise up above that. You can do what is expected of you. Now, Bishop Sharon has said, just be a role model. Go to church, give your heart to God if you're not a Christian, so that you can leave this Christian legacy for your children. And then you can become a part of a church, a village as it is. Let's be a part and be involved. And I just want to say to you, fathers, I want to apologize for the times that we have been so hard on you. As wives and as mothers, we have been so hard on you. You have done everything, but it's never good enough. Our apologies. And this Father's Day, I want you all, Dad, to know that it's coming from our hearts. And we wish that you'll have the best Father's Day ever this 2021. God bless you. And again, Bishop, Dr. Heron, our pleasure. Thank you for being with us, and thank you for sharing.
Again, thank you very much for having me, and I would want to wish for VPI that it will become a house that raises up men who will demonstrate the nature of Christ, demonstrate what Christ-likeness looks like. Your church will raise up men who will take on leadership roles. Not that the women are not important in leadership, but we now need more than ever, I believe, to find men who are taking up leadership in society and will be passing on that leadership to young men, because we're losing a lot of young men because they are unwilling to take up the role of leadership.
Thank you very much. This is Dr. Wright Porter again, coming from Victory Place International Worship Center. God bless you.
Thank you, Lady Porter and Bishop Heron, for that inspiring discussion. At this time, we would like to take a moment to highlight VPI's oldest dad, Elder Roy Lewis.
Whatever the position, the role in life, I thank you very, very much for the years of attending to me, right? Without any murmur or without any hill to climb. Now, you have been very good, very good. And this I want to say to you, keep up the good work and pray God that you live long enough to see someone near to you undergoing what I'm undergoing.